Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to today's event, The Attack on Birzeit University with the Green Olive Collective and Mohammed Hureini of Youth of Sumud. My name is Eres Bleicher, and I'm the Advocacy and Membership Director of the Green Olive Collective, an advocacy, human rights, and tour guiding center committed to a democratic future, the end of the ongoing Nakba, and the Palestinian right of return. We provide communities around the world with insight into the apartheid policies of the occupation and the resources to engage in meaningful advocacy in solidarity with Palestinians. Your contributions for today's event will be split with the collective Youth of Sumud and support both of our work to challenge ongoing policies of forced transfer, displacement, and military occupation in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. We need contributions from you, our wider community, in order to sustain grassroots initiatives with Palestinian communities on the ground, including the replanting of olive trees after arson attacks by settlers, rebuilding homes after demolitions, and cultivating lands threatened with expropriation. You can contribute at giftjustice.com, which I'll just take a moment to put into the chat. On January 6th, Israeli occupation forces raided Birzeit University and wounded 11 students while firing live bullets, tear gas, and stun grenades. The invasion was premeditated and coincided with a student union protest in solidarity with Palestinian prisoners and a screening of the docudrama The Voice of Hind Rajab, which tells the story of a 6-year-old girl killed by Israeli forces in Gaza in 2024 after she called emergency services. Today, we will speak with Mohammed Hureini about his firsthand experience of the raid and what it represents as part of a broader assault on Palestinian education, and how he experienced the raid within a broader set of experiences of education under occupation throughout his life. Mohammed is currently a student at Birzeit and a member of Youth of Sumud, a grassroots collective of young civil resistors in Masafer Yatta that documents human rights violations, accompanies school children facing settler violence, and participates in broader efforts to counter land expropriation and forced transfer. He is a longtime friend, and he is also the brother of Gamar, Samiha, and Sami Hureini, all of whom we've spoken with in the past and are longtime civil resistors and partners. Mohammed, thank you for being here today with everything happening. It's really not taken for granted, and we're glad to have the chance to have you with us as an eyewitness account of the raid, and as always, to hear your invaluable perspective. The last thing I'll say before we begin is that as we continue the conversation from here, everyone should please feel welcome to send questions into the chat. Just write the word question at the beginning, followed by a colon or a dash, so I know to look for it. And hopefully we will have time at the end to open for a broader conversation and a Q&A period. And with that, I'll pass it to you, Mohammed. You should be able to unmute and ask you, of course, to just start by sharing more about yourself. What is your name? Where are you from? And where is your family from? We're really glad to have you with us here today.
Thank you, Eres, so much. I really appreciate this event and who are working on it, and really happy to see all of these people who are joining us to hear more. I'm Mohammed Hureini. I'm an activist and student at Birzeit University from Masafer Yatta, southern tip of the West Bank. And about if we want to talk about the invasion that took place last 2 weeks in my university by the Israeli forces. I mean, as you say, it's my first-hand experience. Actually, it was my first time seeing an invasion of the university during my educational path since 3 years, and I hear from all the students, from all the professors there, it's the first time we have seen a brutal invasion like this. And it was in a sudden, no one expected this. I was just grabbing my coffee and my snacks having a rest between the classes, and they're just going out on the street. I'm just suddenly seeing all of the military, like military vehicles passing, in front of our eyes. The soldiers, just came down immediately and started shouting at the students, and the students were like, freaking out. They're just running into the facility, the buildings of the universities. And it was like kind of chaos. They started to shoot like stun grenades, live ammunitions towards students, and I didn't know what to actually. I just grabbed my phone and started to document what's going on. And actually, I mean, it was really crazy and it was scary for me and for all of the students. Like, we were all seized in one building. There were like more than 8,000 students that day at the university, and they locked us in all of the buildings. uh, and while they were searching for what, I don't know. Until now, the accusation that they are saying that they raided the campus for because the students are screening the film of Hind Rajab, the kid who was murdered by the Israeli forces in Gaza. And there was a stand of solidarity for the Palestinian prisoners who are inside the Israeli prisons and who are facing a brutal, humiliation and life conditions in the prisons. I mean, as I said, like, I don't know if you saw my video that I documented and I published on my profile. You can see how it was, how chaos was the situation and the conditions. And
Yeah.
I
Mohammed,
saw.
if I
Mhm.
can pause you for one moment, first of all, what you're describing already is so shocking and I think so unprecedented and without reference point for so
At
many of us
all, yeah.
around the world. And I think, from my understanding, at least what I've heard from others, is that there have been many raids, in fact, on Birzeit in the past, but this is one of the first in broad daylight during a day when students were,
Exactly.
as you were saying,
Yeah.
you were getting snacks and coffee between classes. That sounds like a typical university experience around the world. And what
Yeah.
followed is not. But if it's okay with you, I wanted to pause and return in just a bit to talking about what happened during the raid and your experience at Birzeit.
Yeah. I was coming by this by the time to talk
Oh,
about
okay.
yeah.
So I
But
wanted to
thank you. Yeah.
actually step way back and
Yeah.
then come back and put what happened at Birzeit in the context of your larger experiences in life of
Yeah.
education
Yeah.
and their
Of
occupation.
course.
Because you, for those who aren't aware already, are from Tuwani, a village that has a very storied, broad, famous history of a struggle for education. That's an example for all of us around the world. So I guess if it's okay with
Yeah.
you, I wanted to step back and ask you to share maybe a bit more about that, and then we'll come back to the current moment in a little bit. But yeah, Tawani, for those who aren't aware, conducted an extended popular struggle and civil resistance campaign to build a school that could serve the children of the community, like Mohammed and many of the surrounding villages in Masafer Yatta. So if it's okay, Mohammed, I wanted to ask you, just to begin, can you tell us more about the popular struggle in Tawani to build a school and in general, and the struggle of your community for the right of education?
Yeah.
Does that feel okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah. I mean,
Super.
as it is said, like, I mean, I was grown amid injustices, amid my people who are fighting, my family and my people, seeing them fighting to provide for us as a new generation, as such as what they can do, like to have a normal rights, like to have a school, kindergarten, and all of this were banned by Israel, of course, because they are denying us our basic human rights since we are kids, as Israel is imposing on us its policy of of trying to grow an uneducated generation of Palestinian people. And I mean, this is a right that's a weapon against the occupation and colonization, because people who would educate themselves would know what they are facing actually. So I mean, the school, like we rebuilt the school three times. Like our people here in Twani, they rebuilt the school three times. It was demolished three times by the occupation, and by their determinacy and by their stubborn of continuation of rebuilding all of these facilities to provide for us, such a dignified life. But I mean, they didn't manage until today, and this is why I'm now an activist to continue their path. To continue their path of providing a better future for the next generation. I don't want to let the new generation face what I already faced, from the suffering and from the threatening, from the arrests that I have faced, me and my fellow brothers and sisters, and all of our people. So I mean, I grew up. I started to be an activist when I was 13 years old, and there was many students around the surrounding villages who didn't have a school in their village. They are coming to educate in the school that in my village, and to come to my village, it's already another story of suffering and passing through the very dangerous road that they will be under threat of being attacked by settlers because of the settlement expansion that they have been building on top of Palestinian land. So I have been accompanying my friends at school and documenting my daily life, how their life looks like, and trying to bring an attention of their cause under this brutal reality. And I mean, I was arrested multiple times during that period, and which is a way of trying Israel's goals is silencing anyone who dare to speak out against Israel's atrocities, actually. I mean, the people who are on the ground, they are the one who are sharing the real facts, the real face of Israel, rather than seeing the Western media that are washing the crimes of Israel and justifying it by showing the only democracy in the Middle East. But I mean, come on the ground and see what's going on, actually. So I mean, uh, as Eres said, it's not the first time as an Israel has violated an international norm, or international agreements or accords and international law. It's been every day they are violating this, and there at the end there is no consequences, there is no accountability for this, and this was why Israel reached this level of brutality and to kill of the killing of Palestinians, because there is no accountability, there is no red line for this killing machine to stop. And as you say, as Iris said, like, my university is not the first invasion that has faced, and I have there are many students in my university are still in Israeli prisons who are prevented now from education. So I mean, this is a message that education have effects on the occupation, and it's a threat on the ideology of occupation and colonization. I mean, there are many days that the university has postponed the education and the classes due to the invasion that comes at midnight and in the morning time. So, but this one that we have faced 2 weeks ago, it was like, yeah, in the daylight. That, I mean, now they don't I mean, they don't care about anyone. So I don't know what to say, but this is kind of what we are already living, and what people are still blind for not seeing it, because due to the complicity of their governments and media who are trying to hide this of what's going on.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you're saying, Mohammed, about the popular struggle of your parents, of the elders of the community in Twani and all through Palestine, the value of education, because for multiple reasons, but also because the occupation wants to stop there from being educated generations of Palestinians who can articulate themselves to people around the world, who can communicate the reality on the ground effectively with communities around the world. So we're really glad to be here with you now for you to articulate and communicate to us what is happening and what's important for us to understand and what's at stake in Palestinian education as one part of the larger Palestinian popular struggle for sovereignty and self-determination. And again, going back to the popular struggle in Twani before we'll return again to Birzeit, I guess I want to ask what you remember from the struggle in your community. I know your parents were involved. I know you've spoken before in conversations about learning civil resistance and popular struggle from your grandmothers. I guess I'm curious, as a child, do you remember yourself the struggle in the community for education, for school, or what do you
Of
remember from that
course,
time?
of course, I remember all of this. I mean, when I was young, I used to follow sometimes I used to bother my father, and I was really always like want to follow him where he goes, because he used to organize the demonstrations and to organize some events for like students and all of the activists who were in that time, for education and to, you know, for the resistance path. And I used to go and see how everything goes actually, and this is what even, you know, make us grow mentally more than physically, you know, to understand the reality that we are living in. And even my father, like if you go to and ask my father actually now, like he will answer you that he don't want his children to be an activist or to follow his, because he don't want his children to face what he already faced. And but of course I mean, for me and my brother, after we have been raised in amid like of I mean, we grow with him and we have seen what his purpose is, what's his goal, what's the ideology from all what he started. There might be some people who can follow, okay? And yeah, I mean, we followed, and we cannot, there's no other choice if we want to reach for a dignified and freedom life in the future. If we don't do this and we don't follow this, what kind of life we want? I mean, unless there is no one is standing and showing, like showing, you know, an rejection for this reality. And I mean, I remember all of the days through the demonstration that we have been chased by the Israeli military, and I mean, the night raids on our homes. When they use our houses as like a military training zone. So they just bring their new soldiers, they bring all of the families out of the houses, and they just raided the homes and making the house upside down. It's just a way of like training them how they would invade a Palestinian homes and how to intimidate the children and the family. So uh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's all memories that stuck in your mind that will let you always. I mean, these memories are the thing that are letting us go, like keep going, you know,
yeah,
without losing hope. Because at some point, when you remember when you start, now it's not the time of even giving a step back, because you
yeah,
already paid the price and over the price. And of course, there is nothing without a price under colonial power, and there are always prices, and you should be ready for it, even your life, because we have witnessed my friend Audi when he was more than in the middle of his house, in the middle of his village, just who was documenting even. So at any moment you can lose your life. And I mean, Palestine worth it. I mean, for me and for every Palestinian, for the next generation, hopefully for a dignified life and liberated life from colonial powers.
Shara, we will work together to make it real and make
Exactly.
it a reality. And I know that Auda also used to always speak about how his father, before his father passed away, Ana Yokamo, the last thing he said is to make sure that he is educated and his children are educated. The value of education was always front and center
Yeah.
and is always front and center. Um, and I know that, of course, your parents, your father Hafez, and many others in Tuani were very steadfast and have been continue to be steadfast for decades, fighting for the right to education for you and all the young people of the village. Just to give people here a little bit more of an idea what that looks like, I found a video of a demonstration in 2010 that I'm sure your father Hafez was involved in organizing, and of a very young Sami, your older brother, you can see marching. So just to give people a little bit of an idea of the context you grew up in fighting for education, I thought I'd share. One moment. So people can see this. here at the front of the demonstrations, I believe, is Hafez, Mohammed's father. And here, I believe, is Mohammed, your older brother, Sami.
I'm here. I'm this guy.
Yeah, okay. In any case, just a glimpse, but I wanted to give people the context of the tradition of struggle for education, specifically as part of the broader struggle for freedom of movement and rights that Muhammad has grown up in already. And then, so of course, the school also, they had to fight to build it because in Area C of the occupied West Bank, which is under direct Israeli control, the Palestinian communities are denied 99% of building permits. So they had to fight to build the physical building of the school. Once, through popular struggle and a sustained, protracted campaign, the community and the Hureinis, Muhammad's family, and others won the right to build the school. The school began to serve communities from around Masafer Yatta in firing zone 918, that was declared a military training ground in the 1980s, and it was a key centerpiece of education and of empowering the young people in the communities. But the struggle, of course, didn't stop at building the physical building and establishing the school. Then they had to fight to give access to the school to the villages around Tawani. So, Mohammed, I wanted to ask maybe also about that, about the experience of the children from Tuba and the accompaniment of school children and what it meant to work towards and continue even to now, of course, to give people access to education. What was involved in that in Tawani and in Masafer Yatta?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as you said, like the villages that are surrounding Tuani, they do not have a school, as Israel denies them. They are obliged to come to educate where I live, and I could see that when I'm at my class, seeing the students being late on their classes, like coming after 1 hour after late due to the obstacles that they face from settlers attacks or the soldiers who used to get late. And I couldn't just look at like this, seeing them being late. Okay, if they're late, I should be late as well, and I should join them for their journey, going. And since then I started to document these daily life, like journey. It's really like I don't know if it's a journey that carries the risk, to that you have the gun, which is your only gun, and machine is only the camera that could show what's the brutality of occupation. And for example, I mean, we can't pick the Tuba children, and a big example of this, who have been like for years suffering to get an education, and they have been documented by many people, by many activists, on how their lives looks like. I mean, I started to accompany them since I was 13, and I used to wait them in front of the settlement, because the settlements that because between the villages in my community, there used to be roads that connect each other, and the settlements that have been established in my community are built on this road, and they are now separating and suffocation. It's like a way of fragmentation. So it's impossible for So Israel colonial ideology is to surround and suffocate and kick, and transfer the Palestinians from their homes. And they are almost in the second stage, and now they are just need to kick the Palestinians out, and they are not just waiting the best moment for this. And I mean, these kids who are obliged to walk through this dangerous road to get to their education and to get to school, they have to risk. I mean, and there are many students who stop their educational path due to these risks that they used to take. And some parents who are caring about their children, they don't let the children to go to school. So I mean, sometime there used to be a military escort, and Israeli soldiers escorting Israeli Palestinian children, and I mean maybe this will make you shock. How could this happen? But this is of course after an international intervention of this cause, because in 2004, before 2004, the student they should they used to not have this escort, military escort, but after 2004 they have. Why? Due to the international activists who used to walk and accompany these kids since that time to school and back forth to their home, and they have been attacked brutally. There were two Americans who were attacked, and the students with them, they were injured very badly, and they went to hospital. And I mean, so as international were attacked as opposed to Palestinian children, Israel, and because of the attention of that, there was like two white American people were attacked. I mean, this helps. It goes widely on social media and on the magazines. So this bring an attention, which we did an appeal. So this after this, the Israeli government was pressured into finally, addressing the violence and giving a military escort for these kids and so on. So they should start to take them from the morning from their homes to the school, and from the school back to their home. But here it starts. Like, I mean, when you look at the Israeli soldiers and how their ideology works, this mission, it didn't make sense for them, or how they are like escorting an Arab, not Palestinian, Arab children. So sometimes they are getting late, they're not showing up, and this is where me and other activists mission to start, which is, following up with the military. If they didn't show up, we go, and we go with ourselves, with our cameras, we go through the route, bringing the children and go back to school, and then back forth to their homes. And during these risks, of course, we have been, chased by settlers, soldiers even, and I have been, arrested many times due to this activism that I was doing. And I was once threatened by a knife by a commander when he arrested me and put me in his office in the military base. He put the knife in my neck, when I was 15 years old. And and he told me if whether you want to go back home, and the next day they want to see you waiting in the same spot for the kids, or now I take you to the prison and you won't come back to your family. So I mean, this is a part of the thing that I was facing, and of course, I mean, I said no. I mean, take me to the prison and let's see what will happen, because they didn't have any any real accusation to accuse me to put me in prison. So they just, threaten you. They put you one day in custody, 2 days, and then they will just free you because you didn't have any trials, any real trial.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this is how like kind of the Palestinian children and students are facing to get an education. I mean, there's an example in the south of the West Bank. Also, you can go to the north and you will find the same thing, but with different story, with different policies.
Yes. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to draw out the larger context in your own experience and in the South Urban Hills, Masafer Yatta, was to highlight the ways that everyone, all the students at Birzeit who are present now and are struggling for their education, despite the conditions, and were present at the raid, have fought their whole lives for education. Their communities have engaged in collective struggles, great sacrifices to have access to education.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think understanding the larger context where there is an arbitrary administrative detention, no due process and legal processes considered standard internationally when people protest in Masafer Yatta or at Birzeit, when people accompany other school children, all these things, the level of violence that exists to stop life from being possible, to stop education from being possible, to stop people from pursuing self-determination is important. And what you described when you were 13, 14, 15, of course, led to what happened in the year or two after that with the establishment of Youth of Sumud. I was wondering if you wanted to talk a bit about Youth of Sumud also, and the collective and the work
Yeah.
that you do together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our group was Palestinian grassroots from both youth and ladies from my community, from different villages that we gathered in the village of Sarura, a village that was forcibly transferred and expelled in 1998 by the Israeli forces. We started our ID and our group in 19. No, it was started as a Sumud Freedom Camp in 19 of May 2017, and where they with I mean, it is you were there as well, and you join us during that the beginning of launching that Sumud Freedom Camp, of the idea of encouraging the people who were out of their homes, who were forcibly expelled, to come back, to return to their homes, and to make the life much easier for them to come back, to return, and to save the land from being colonized and by the settlement expansion and settlers who are roaming the Palestinian land. And yeah, I mean, we started in that place where we renovate caves and planting the valleys of trees, olive trees, or other plants. It's recreating the life again to this village. And since then, our activism expanded, and during that experience where we faced the most of the threats and the night raids by the Israeli military, we left our families here. We lived in the caves. I mean, Aries witnessed how the life was there. Like there was nothing, no electricity, no water. No, you need to carry the water from the nearby village, and the power banks for the battery, and so on. So it was like kind of very, very beginning of life, for as we were in 2017. And yeah, as I said, activism was expanded in all over the West Bank, where we accommodate school children, Syrian shepherds who are denied from accessing to their land, and documenting the daily attacks and violations and crimes by settlers and by the Israeli military, the daily demolitions. Doing campaigns like Faz'a, we're one of the organizer of it, and the Fund Racism campaign that focuses on the Israeli organization that are in hand with the occupation, that's been funded by the U.S. even governments and other governments in the world, like for example Ragavim, who are following the Palestinian building, then sending the Israeli civil administration to give the demolition order and then demolish the house of the Palestinians. So they are following the Palestinian structures and banning them from expanding on their land. So yeah, I mean, this is like headlines of what we do, and of course, each of us as a new generation was threatened, and his family house was raided and threatened by the Israeli commanders to stop what we are doing as an activists. But I mean, as I said, there is no step back for what since we started, and we are still carrying on until today, carrying on the messages of our people, our grandparents and parents, and still following on until we give it and pass it to our children, and hopefully our grandchildren. Hopefully, it will not last for our children and grandchildren, this suffering. But yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed. Um, and we always want to pass on the tradition of struggle that exists, but of course, we hope in the future there won't be reasons to struggle and the occupation will not be here.
Hopefully,
Um,
yeah.
but I wanted to say for myself that, well, both of us were younger in 2017 when Youth of Sumud launched, but I think for me, being present during that time and seeing the effort that all of you initiated to reclaim and rehabilitate the cave, reestablish access for the families who had been displaced in 1998 was so powerful and a model for how to engage in popular struggle. And one of the most beautiful things that emerged from that also for me was seeing Youth of Sumud emerge in this collective of young civil resistors who have continued to expand the relationships and the networks of civil resistance and popular struggle in such a powerful way. And to give people here also who maybe haven't had a chance to be on the ground and see the incredible work all of you do together. Here's a little bit of a glimpse of that as well I wanted to show. One moment.
Youth of Sumud is different youth activists from different villages from the South Hebron Hills, male and female. We are doing and organizing every day accompanying the Palestinian shepherds who are under threat of attack by the Israeli settlers, accompanying the school children who come every day to school in the morning and in the afternoon.
الو
حمزي
آه.
شو طلعت؟ Hamzi is a child from the village of Tuba who come to study in the village of Twani, and he's coming through this road just if he is escorted by the Israeli army. This is what the soldiers should do, but different attacks happened, and the children and the soldiers were doing nothing. Every child has the right to education, but the children of Tuba, every day their right to education is violated.
So just a glimpse into the incredible and critical work that Mohammed and his family and other young civil resistors in Youth of Sumud and in Masafer Yatta and throughout the West Bank, of course, are doing every day to sustain life and protect the right and defend the right to education. And I think following from that, and now with the larger context of policy and education that's fought for in the West Bank, I do want to return again to what we began with and the raid on Birzeit within this larger context. So you mentioned your video earlier before. I'd love to show people your video if it's okay with you. But do you want to first speak? So we heard at the very beginning, okay, you were getting coffee and snacks in between classes. And then what happened, or as much as you want to share, what took place after that? What did you witness?
Yeah, of course they ruined my moment of, having relaxation. During that chaos situation, after they invaded they started to shoot live ammunition and stun grenades. My coffee was dropped through my shoes, and then we all ran inside the buildings. After about like 20 minutes, the students went out and they said that the soldiers are going out. So we all went out, and we were like close to the entrance where the soldiers were still remained there, and they start to shoot live ammunition. And there, where I saw like students were shot in the leg, I saw the shrapnels hitting the walls, and that moment I feel that I would get injured, and I was just like laying on the ground. And I mean, it's not nice for me to laugh, but I mean, when I remember that moment, it's like crazy for me. And uh, yeah, and after this, we took the injured students into inside the buildings and waiting for the ambulances that were not allowed to enter the university, the campus. After the all the soldiers just left the campus, then the ambulance were allowed to enter to take the injured students and who were suffocated by the tear gas and the shrapnels of the live ammunitions and the stun grenades. So this is what happened. I mean, and it was crazy at some point. It will be remarked in every student's memory. This invasion. Hopefully, it will be the last one.
Shana. And all of our thoughts and prayers, of course, are with the families of the students and the students themselves who were injured and everyone who went through that difficulty. I'm curious to ask also, what has the week of classes or life on campus been like since then? What's it been like talking with your classmates? Has the administration responded in any way and addressed the students? Or I'm not sure, but how did the university move in the last week from that moment?
I mean, there is nothing in our hand to do actually, but it's a way of the university has to work in a way of how it will keep the same feeling as before the invasion of, at least feeling safety, because even we have guards on the university, but these guards also are like Palestinian, simple people that they always been arrested and humiliated by the Israeli forces when they invaded the university. We did, they did a conference for the media and about the condemnation of all of this violation against the Palestinian students, and calling for the international, intervention in such a things, and to have to do accountability for these crimes that they are committing. And of course, there is no any uh, there is no replies or response to this, because as I said, Israel is not being accountable for decades for all its crimes that it commit against Palestinians. So I mean, our daily things after that invasion, it was, for me, I didn't see any difference. Of course, it's the same. I mean, whether we accept it or not is the same. It's our reality, and it's the way of how we gonna work, how we gonna keep going, whether this will happen or not, because it's not in our power to change. It's like a power that's not in our hand. So I mean, we are under occupation, we're under colonial power. What we can do, and let's just keep going and continuing our education.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that we should stop and close the university, or yeah.
I think it's, of course, not in your or the students' hands or all of our hands to end the occupation today, unfortunately, but collectively, it is in our hands to
Yeah.
dismantle the occupation and larger systems of violence and oppression in the world, even if it takes decades. So
Exactly.
I'm glad that we're here today, doing even a small part in bearing witness, being together, communicating across the borders that the occupation regime tries to isolate Palestinians from each other and also from grassroots networks around the world. And I guess I do want to try to make sure there's time for questions and open conversation, but do you have any I'm curious for any last thoughts you had about, though you touched on it already, spoke about it some, why do you think the occupation regime is threatened by education and the university? What is threatening to the occupation regime in learning and scholarship in Palestinian life?
Uh, I mean, history even says that. If we look back to our history as humanity, and in every colonial power that has set and have been imposed on other people, we have seen which the first thing that was targeted is the education, because the education is the thing that will keep the cause alive. Without education, how would students know what's going on in the political life, how the political level is reaching these days, and how they are going to engage with this education? I mean, it's very essential for each one to get it, and I mean, it's a simple right to have it. And we can see how many Palestinian writers that came out from even my university, who are writing, like for example, Munir Fashe and other many writers. Like, I mean, also like the famous, but he's not from my university, but Edward Said, like one of these like amazing writers from our people, who even their books were banned from entering the West Bank in the 90s by Israel, because Israel knows how effective it will be for for our people to read such a books,
Edward
because
Said's books were banned. It makes sense in the logic of occupation, but
yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when even because here we are locked into a prison inside the West Bank and Gaza and inside the 48 occupied lands. Here, Israel controls everything that comes in and out. And actually, in the past, there was no connection actually for our people, and if they cannot go out, how they would know what's going on abroad? So without the books that used to come from our writers abroad who are writing, and about even for the Orientalism things and all of these writings, how we would know about how the Western are looking at us in which way, and how Israel is using, and the colonial powers, how they are, washing the mind of the people, brainwashing them, and how they are, setting the mentality of colonialism for the people to make it, acceptable in everyday life. So, I mean, it's clear and, obvious for that education is a threat on every colonial power in every era, not in also in our time.
Yeah, I think what you shared about Edward Said is so powerful also, and it's making me think because of course that gets to the heart of all of this, that Palestinian education and universities scholarship would and does create Palestinian analysis, historical perspective, political consciousness and awareness, and communicates that to the world as part of larger struggles around the world for justice and freedom. So the attempt to shut that down is, of course, a key priority of the regime. And I'm reminded always of a quote by the famous Black liberation activist Assata Shakur, who said that no one is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. So we have to educate ourselves, and having you here to educate us today is really important and really appreciated, especially, of course, with everything that's happening and everything moving so fast.
This is what we are for here, doing what we can.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for everyone.
Of course. So with that, I do want to open it up. And I saw a question or two, but if people have questions now that they want to ask directly, raise your hand on Zoom if you know how to do that with the yellow hand, and I can call on you to ask directly. I did, as people are raising their hands, or if you don't have a question, but just have something you want to share and say to Mohammed, you're more than welcome in the few minutes remaining. I saw one person ask about the response from the university administration of Birzeit. So I did want to, maybe as people think of their questions or what they want to share, send a link to a statement from the university administration following the incident that was released on the day of the raid. People can find it here. I'm putting it into the chat, where they talk about the occupation making the university into a site of military aggression as part of the larger aims of occupation, and also to shut down the student union protests and the student union as a collective vehicle for expression. The university, of course, and the student unions being, of course, historically and today, a powerful site for collective political and national expression. And the university also was shut down, I know, Birzeit itself from 1988 to 1992 during the Intifada, which was a famous incident in which Palestinians refused to allow themselves and their children not to be educated and educated each other in the streets, and is also a powerful history. Okay, someone just asked me to show Mohammed's footage from the day. Is that okay with you, Mohammed? Can I show your video?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and then we'll move to questions. So I don't know how you managed to make this video so quickly, but we'll get to that later.
War zones. The people are now raiding it. No one can go in and out from the university. It's all surrounded. It seems that he's aiming to shoot. Look high! They're now shooting live bullets. One student was shot in the leg. Another injury. 9 people were shot and at least 32 suffered suffocation from tear gas and shrapnel wounds by the stun grenades. They're now on the entrances. It seems that they are going to leave. No, they're not going to. Fuck! This is part of the daily life for the Palestinian students under occupation. Education is controlled and terrorized by the occupation. How much they don't want Palestinians to be educated was part of our struggle against the occupation. The forbidden knowledge. And Happy New Year. The university has
Good scenes to watch, but we're thankful to you, Mohammed, for communicating what was happening in real time and having the wherewithal to bear witness and share. So I saw a hand before from Barbara, I believe. Is there still a question or a comment you want to share? Seems not. Does someone else have a question? Just raise your hand. Okay, I saw a question just now about how students in universities around the world can stand in solidarity and support universities and students on the ground in Palestine. Do you have any thoughts to share about that, Mohammed?
What was the question?
How students, university students around the world, uh, and universities in different ways can stand in solidarity with Palestinian students in universities on the ground, and if there are ways to connect, and any thoughts you have about how to build solidarity.
Actually, it's very important to have an like an engagement with the international students from outside to understand because I'm sure most of the students from abroad, they are not understanding the context of what we are going through, why our education is targeted, and it's very important to have to share and to talk and to have sessions between each other. They can push on their universities. I have seen some universities have also condemned this such a brutal uh, invasion on the university, and this is, I mean, part of the violations that on violating the international norms, according to that. And this cannot go just like this. It needs some really attention of it. And if we just read it as a news and then we just roll up for a new like news, it will just happen again and again and again. It won't end. So students from abroad, they can be involved and come. I don't know if they have the possibility to come and understand what's going on for 2 weeks or 1 week, or just for a visit and to the campuses in Palestine, how it's going on. And also they can demonstrate in their campuses to push on their university to condemn and to try to push on the government to do something to what happened, to what's happening here in Palestine for the educational system.
Thank you, Mohammed. And of course, the encampments over the last years were powerful.
Yeah, we
Showed
have seen so much, and I told you, I'm like, my hope is in the new generation who are now raising up and understanding what's going on. And I think they need more information of what's going on, because I think they won't get what's going on unless they have it firsthand.
yeah, building those connections. So I'm seeing um, a question that a few people have voiced about the relationship between students and university and the BDS movement. So I'll just read out a question here. This is from Tamara Levitz, who asked, I wonder how the BDS movement supports or inhibits your efforts at education. I realize the BDS movement is a broad movement, but I'm wondering about the relationship. So I'm curious, is BDS talked about on campus? Are students involved, or how does it relate to university life or student life?
Actually, I didn't follow up with if the BDS would say something about this, but I'm sure they are following about something like this. I mean, the BDS is a well-known organization that they are, showing and like trying to push people on boycotting and focusing on the factories and the big companies that they are supporting supporting Israel and its apartheid regime. So I mean, of course, the BDS maybe had done something with the students, but I mean, I was after the invasion, I was absent for 3 days from the university because even there was like some holidays after the invasion. So But the relationship between the BDS and the Palestinian students, of course, is like a big connection, because it's like a part of what they should even continue. Should educate the students of what's even the values of BDS, what's other vision of BDS, so students can have this on their list of what they can do with BDS.
Right. Of course, relationship between social movements and political organizing and students and educating about the strategies and tactics for freedom and justice and liberation. It makes sense. Very helpful. I saw, moving to another question, Sarah Lewisum asked a question. I'll ask you to unmute, Sarah, if you want to ask the question directly. Are you there?
Oh, hello. Sorry about that. I actually put two questions in.
Okay.
One, I was in Palestine recently in November, actually in Masafer Yatta, so that's very interesting, and traveled around a lot as well. And I understood that since October 23, the Israelis have halved the amount of money going to the PA, which means that schools and universities, the staff are only being paid half. I wondered if that was correct, and that must also have a big impact on education.
Yeah. Did you finish?
No, well, my second question really was about student unions, whether there are student unions in Palestine like there are in UK, where I am, and whether they have like links. I know all the things you said about the BDS. I was out doing BDS activity this morning actually, but and I met students from London who are, I don't know, being arrested, all sorts of things going on. But my question was whether there are specific student unions in Palestine which are linked with student groups in internationally, including UK, where I am. Thank you.
Firstly, yeah, that's what you say in the beginning of that Israel has restricted the amount of money that goes to the PA for the educational system. Right now, due to that, the salaries of the teachers are not fully paid, and that sees even the days of education for students to 3 days only per week. And this is a very scary period of, that children are not having enough days for education, even through all of the obstacles that they are facing, even to reach school, like from the checkpoints that they are going through every day. So yeah, it's really a tough period that we are going through right now. And on the partnership between the students union between Palestine and other countries outside, there is, in my university, there's a campaign called the Right to Education campaign that they are following with this, having connection with other students abroad, even in the US. And I have many, webinars, sharing with students and talking about what's going on here on the ground. But in the UK, I never did an Zoom meeting with them. And I think, but there is a partnership with other students abroad, for like the US, Spain, Italy.
Yeah. And in general, there are student unions, and at Birzeit, it's very influential. And the military raided specifically during a student union organized protest in solidarity with Palestinian political prisoners, and during a screening of the film The Voice of Hind Rajab during the student union sponsored protests. So it's exactly in response to the political expression of the student unions, the Palestinian student unions, that this incident occurred. And I know the student unions are also very important because there's student union elections at Birzeit and universities, and they have political influence. Who wins the student union elections is a sign of political power, and the sentiments and how political feelings and alliances are forming in the wider Palestinian society. So the student unions do, I know, play an important role, though I'm not so much of an expert in it historically. And on that note, I think, Gabriella, I saw you had something you wanted to share. If you want to share it still, you're welcome, and I'll ask you to unmute. And then, unfortunately, I think that'll be our last comment for today.
I will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I will quickly share. Mohammed, thank you very much. It's a comment, not a question. I'm in a project with Erez, with Green Olive Collective. Caroline, who's here, is also in this project, and we're linking with an activist from Susia, who's also at Birzeit. And I was in touch with him directly on the day of the raid. I heard it on Al Jazeera, and then I quickly WhatsApped him, and he sent me voice messages, and we were back and forth in contact with each other. And I suppose my comment is, one, I'm amazed, Mohammed, that you managed to do that video. That's incredible that you had the presence of mind to do it. But the other thing that I wanted to say was, when I left a voice message for the student that I know, I was in tears because it was so real, and somehow knowing somebody, it makes it so different when you've started to have a bit of a personal connection. And I just wanted to say that the intimacy of connection also seems to me the hope that we actually manage to talk to each other. You know, I was born in Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, of course. My parents were part of creating the State of Israel. I'm glad they're not here to see what has happened now. And having that connection meant so much. The one other thing I just want to say very quickly was, when the activist is in Susia, I'm always hoping that he's in Birzeit. And when he was at Birzeit, I was hoping he was in Susia. And it just really brought home to me that there is nowhere that is safe in Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following from what Gabriella just shared also, yes, the Green Olive Solidarity Network is a platform that is trying exactly to build and develop these connections and sustained solidarity and coordinated action between communities around the world and on the ground. So going back to you, Sarah, if there are student unions in the UK who want to connect with Palestinian students and human rights defenders on the ground, I'd love to talk about how to creating a solidarity circle, a chapter as we've called it in the network, to have build sustained connections and conversation between student activists on the ground and student activists in the UK and around the world. So please do reach out, or anyone else who wants to think about how to connect communities across borders and build solidarity. With that, to my great sorrow, we unfortunately are out of time for today. That we'll be back again with Mohammed in the future and have more time to speak at other points. Sincere thanks, Mohammed. It's really
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Erez, for this.
Do you have any last thought you want to share to close the day? Yeah. Any last word?
Last words. I mean, I do really firstly thanks you and everyone who's working on, mobilizing and bring awareness of what we are doing here. And I mean, still we have much stories still in the future. I mean, it won't be the first and the last. And yeah, we'll catch up soon, hopefully in another Zoom, and we'll talk about many other topics. And yeah, we'll be looking for that time.
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, talk soon. I'm excited to build different projects and connections. As I mentioned at the start of today, your contributions will be split with Youth of Sumud and support the work of both Youth of Sumud and the Green Olive Collective to challenge policies of forced transfer, displacement, and occupation. They will help sustain grassroots initiatives with Palestinian human rights defenders like Mohammed to replant olive trees after arson attacks, rebuild homes, and cultivate lands threatened with expropriation. And as I mentioned, you're all invited to join the Green Olive Solidarity Network. In this time of ongoing pain and difficulty, it's often difficult, of course, to know what to do from around the world to express our solidarity and tangibly support Palestinians facing mass eviction and increasing state violence. That's why we launched this advocacy and mutual aid network that allows people to maintain direct contact and connection with Palestinians living under military rule and directly support on the ground activism. So you can find the link to join the Green Olive Solidarity Network or form a solidarity circle, a chapter, in the links I shared in the chat. And of course, anyone who wants to join in person to meet Mohammed in Masafer Yatta and share a glass of tea or coffee is more than welcome. Join us anytime. We're happy to connect to you and, of course, to host you on a tour with the Green Olive Collective or on one of our solidarity missions. And on that note, see everyone soon. Have wonderful days. Thanks, Mohammed. Have a quiet evening, inshallah, and see everyone very soon for upcoming events.
Thank you.
Masalam.
Salamat.